Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we'll be making a modern wrap top. This one's heavy on the texture, light on the straps, and has just enough snatch. In other words, all the things for a perfect warm weather wearable. Speaking of, if you're looking for more sunshine ready makes, you are in the perfect place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns dropping weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 3 yarn will work, but I used a total of 125 grams of yarn. That's 230 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 4mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us what is your favorite emoji. I don't get to use mine super often, but mine is the upside down face. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 3 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 4mm hook, and for every size, we're all going to start with a chain 1. Now, once we have our chain 1, we're going to block off that first chain, and we're all going to do a chain 2. That does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Now, into that first chain that we made, or into that chain that we blocked off, we're all going to start with an increase of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that first chain, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. There's 1 half double crochet. We're going to be doing 2 more into that same chain. So insert, pull through all 3, and again, insert, pull through all 3. Now for our first row, we should all have 1, 2, 3 stitches. We're starting with the point of our wrap for our front panel, and we're going to start increasing from here. So right after our row 1, we're all going to chain 1 and flip our work. Now at the end of every even number row, we're going to be doing an increase. But until we get to that last stitch, we're going to do our Suzette stitches. Our Suzette stitches are fairly simple. It's always going to be a single crochet and double crochet into the same stitch. So now that we've turned our work, we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch from our previous row, starting with 1 single crochet, and then into that same first stitch with a double crochet. So pull through 2, pull through 2. Now for everyone, we should all have 1, 2 stitches left. After every Suzette stitch set, we are always going to be skipping that following stitch because that double crochet that we just did counts as that stitch. If we work into there, we will be accidentally increasing. So we are all going to skip 1, and then into that following stitch, which should be the last one, we're all going to do 2 half double crochets and then 1 double crochet into that last stitch, and that's going to count as our increase. So yarn over, into that last stitch, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Again, yarn over, into that last stitch, pull through all 3. That's 2 half double crochets, and then for our increase, we're going to close it off with a double crochet. So yarn over, into that same last stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So for everyone's row 2, we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. We should always end on an odd number of stitches for every row for this portion. So let's get started on the following row, and we're all going to chain 1 and flip our work. Now our odd number rows aren't going to have any increases or decreases, so all we're going to do is our Suzette stitches all the way down. So into that first stitch, insert with a single crochet, and then into that same first stitch with a double crochet. Like I said, we are always going to be skipping that following stitch because that double crochet counts as that stitch. And then into the next, another Suzette stitch set. So we are going to insert with a single, and then insert into that same stitch with a double crochet. Now whenever we're doing our odd number rows, we are always going to stop 2 stitches before the end of the row because we're going to close off the row with just 1 half double crochet because we need it to be blunt. So yarn over, skip that second to last stitch, and then into the last, we're going to insert with just 1 half double crochet, and now our first 3 rows are finished. It's going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows, so let's just get the next few finished up as well. Chain 1 and flip. We're going to start with our Suzette stitch. So just like before, single crochet and double crochet into that same first stitch. We're always going to skip that following stitch and then into the stitch right after, another single and a double. Now for all of our rows, we're always going to continue on with our Suzette stitch sets until we have 2 stitches left. The only difference is at the end of every even number row, we're going to end it with an increase, and at the end of every odd number row, we're just going to close it off with 1 half double crochet. So since we're working on row 4, an even number row, let's do our increase. You should all have 1, 2 stitches left, so yarn over, into that last stitch, start with 1 half double crochet, into that same last stitch, a second half double crochet, and then into that same last stitch with a double crochet. Now, fun fact for the increase rows, we're always going to close it off with a double crochet because if we just do an increase of 3 half double crochets, our increase portions can start to curve on us a little bit. But let's get started on our following row, which is an odd number row. So let's all chain 1, flip our work, and now we're going to do our Suzette stitch sets until we have 2 stitches left. So insert with a single, with a double, skip a stitch into the next with a single, with a double. I will meet you back when we all have 2 stitches left. Now for my row 5, I have 1, 2, 3 Suzette stitch sets with 2 stitches left. Since this is an odd number row, close it off with just 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. And just to do our next even number row together, which is our row 6, chain 1, flip our work, and do our Suzette stitch sets until we all have 2 stitches left again. Our row 6 is nearly finished. We should all have 1, 2, 3 Suzette stitch sets, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now since this is an even number row, let's all finish it off with an increase. So yarn over, skip that following stitch and into the last with 2 half double crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2, and then into that same last stitch with a double crochet. And that is basically it. So all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the height that we need. So when we're measuring this up to ourselves, all we're going to do is make sure that we're placing our tail end, so this one right here, at mid underarm, and then we're going to continue on with expanding these rows, and we're going to continue until we have a portion that can stretch across our chest until this point is right where you want the strap to be on the other side of your chest. So I would estimate about mid collarbone or around where your bra strap or a tank top strap would be. And I'll meet you back along the bottom, so right after an odd number row, and then we can finish up with our underarm. Alright, so we are back with the increase portion of our front panel. Now I have a total of 33 rows. My total width is 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. And my total height is 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. Now what we're going to do from here is our underarm portion. So what we're all going to do is insert our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top, roughly where the corner of our underarm is. I've inserted my stitch marker into the 8th stitch from the top, and that's just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to do our Suzette stitches all the way up, leaving 4 stitches right before our stitch marker, and then I'll meet you back to do a decrease. So we are back. We have made our way all the way up with our Suzette stitches, and we have left 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches before our stitch marker, and now we're going to do a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So let's all yarn over. We're all going to skip that following stitch and then into that next, which is the 3rd to last, pull through, into that following, which is the 2nd to last, pull through, and then into that following, which is that last, and pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then from here, just yarn over, pull through all 5 of those loops, and that is our decrease. We are finished with our first underarm row. Now for our underarm row, we're going to be decreasing into every other row. So for our following row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and make our way all the way down with our Suzette stitch sets, making sure that we close off the row with just 1 half double crochet. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, make your way back up with our Suzette stitch sets, leaving the last 4 stitches, and I'll meet you back to decrease just once more. We are back and we are nearly finished with our first 3 underarm rows. We should have met back when we have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left along the end of our 3rd underarm row. So now we're going to do another decrease together. So just like the previous decrease, we're all going to yarn over, skip that following stitch, and then into the stitch right after, which is the 3rd to last stitch, pull through, into that next, which is the 2nd to last stitch, pull through, and then into the last stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. And all we're going to do is yarn over, pull through all 5. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows. So our following row is going to be a non-increase row, so just do our Suzette stitches all the way down, closing off the row with a half double crochet. Continue on repeating these 2 rows until we have a portion that can stretch over to mid underarm, and we do all need to make sure that we're ending on an odd number of underarm rows, so we should end along the top. When we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of my front panel is finished. I have a total of 40 rows, and my width is now just about 11.5 inches or 29 centimeters. Now right after our last underarm row, we all should have done a chain up of 1 and cut, and just as a quick reminder, we all should have ended along the top. And once we have that, we're going to be making a second identical panel. Once we have both of our panels finished up, I'll meet you back so we can get started on the back panel. But I actually already have both of my front panels all finished up, so let's just get started on the back. So getting started on the back is going to be fairly simple. We already know how to do the steps. So what we're going to do is start by making a chain for the same amount of chains that we ended on for our last underarm row. It should be an odd number of stitches for everyone. So for those of you that have my numbers, I have a total of 19 stitches here. So now to get started on the back panel, I'm going to make a chain of 19. Now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. That's our turning chain. And then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with our first Suzette stitch set. So go ahead and insert, pull through. There's our first single crochet, and then a double crochet into that same chain. And then from here, we're going to skip a stitch and then do a Suzette stitch set into that following stitch, so everything is per usual. I'll meet you back when we have 2 chains left. We've made our way down with our Suzette stitch row, leaving the last 2 chains. Now into that last chain, we're going to do an increase, and it's going to be the same increase that we did for the front panel. So yarn over, and into the last chain, we're going to insert with 2 half double crochets and then 1 double crochet. So there's my half double. There's my second half double, and then a double crochet all into that same last chain. Now our following row is going to be an even number row. We will not be doing any increases or decreases. So chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Suzette stitch sets all the way down, closing off the row with 1 half double crochet. From here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as the front panel. So for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 7 underarm rows. So I'll meet you back when I have a total of 7 underarm rows here. Alright, so I am back. I've just finished up my underarm portion for my back panel. I should have the same amount of rows as the underarm portion that I have for my front panel, so 7 for me. And then from there, since we all should have ended along the top, what we're going to do is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our underarm for the front panel. So for those of you that have my numbers, I inserted my stitch marker into the 8th stitch from the top. So from here, I made a chain 8. And all we're going to do from here is Suzette stitch rows with no increases and no decreases working across our back. So once we have our chain, just chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. And just do our Suzette stitch set all the way down, closing off the row with a half double crochet. At the end of that row, chain 1, flip our work, make our way all the way back up with our Suzette stitch sets, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet again. Continue on with our Suzette stitch rows with no increases and no decreases working across our back until we're roughly at the corner of our underarm from our back. And I'll meet you guys back along the bottom or right after an even number row, just so I can talk you guys through how we're going to do our underarm. But that underarm is actually going to be done the same way that we did for the front panel. Alright, so we are back. I have just finished up the width of my back panel and my underarm as well, as you guys can see. But the amount of rows that I have for just my back panel, I have a total of 40 rows, and this width is roughly 10 inches or 25 centimeters. And then I just repeated the same underarm portion that we did for the front panel. So just insert my stitch marker into the same amount of stitches as the front panel, did the same amount of decrease rows as the front panel as well. And once we have that, we are ready to seam our sides together. So seaming all of our panels together, we're all going to start by placing our front panel on top of our back panel, and then inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch. Then we're all going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through and do a chain 1 to secure, and now we're going to do a single crochet seam. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and we're going to single crochet around everything. Let's do this again. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet, and that's it. We're going to continue to work our way all the way up, and we don't have any more stitches left to work into. I'll meet you back so we can make our strap. Alright, so we are back, and I have just finished up my side seam connecting the front and the back. Now what we're going to do is close our panel, making sure that the seam is along the inside, and then we're all going to start by doing a single crochet row, working our way all the way up until we reach the top corner. So working into every side row, we are going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So let's all start by finding our first one, and this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert into there with 1 single crochet. This is my following side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then into that same top loop with a second single crochet. Let's do this again. This is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. This is my following side row. I'm going to insert my hook in through there with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and there's 2. We're going to continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Once we reach our stitches, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at this top corner. Alright, so we are back, and we have just made our way all the way up to this top corner stitch. As you guys can see, I went ahead and already made my chain, but all we're going to do is make a chain that reaches up and over our shoulder that can reach the top corner stitch of the back panel. And a really quick sizing tip, we just want to make sure that when we're making this chain, that the bottom of this piece stays at our underbust. But once we have that, we can then connect it into the back panel and then clean up our armhole. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a total of 35, and that's just about 8 inches or 20 centimeters. And now we're going to single crochet it into the top corner stitch of the back panel. So taking my chain, I'm going to insert my hook into this top corner stitch of the back, and then I'm going to single crochet. This single crochet is to connect the strap and also counts as our first single crochet, working our way down our back panel. So there's my first single crochet, and then from here continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Once we reach our underarm, alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, and then slip stitch into that chain space when we don't have any more side rows left to work into. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, repeat this on the other side, and then I will meet you back. Alrighty, so both of our straps are finished, and now we're going to seam everything together. So both of the front panels, and then we're going to get started on the length of our piece. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of the seams are along the inside. Then we're all going to lay our front panels on top of each other. And then we're going to start by inserting our hook into the point of our top front panel, and then into the first side row that we have that's nearest to our side seam from our bottom front panel. Then from there, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, and then we're going to do a single crochet seam. So all we're going to do is pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now working in through both the top and bottom front panel, we're going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So let's all start by finding our first side row within the front panel, and this is mine right here. We're going to insert, finding our first side row within the bottom front panel, this is mine right here, and insert, starting with just 1 single crochet. we're all going to start by finding the next side row within the front panel, find that top loop and insert, find the next side row within the bottom front panel, find that top loop, insert, and single crochet together. And within the same rows within the top and bottom front panel, another single crochet, because remember we're alternating between 1 to 2. So into that same top loop within the front panel, same top loop within the back panel, and single crochet. That second single crochet should have been a little bit easier since everything should have already been gathered. Let's do this again. This is my falling side row within the top panel, insert, find your falling side row within the bottom panel, insert, and single crochet. And then our falling row, find that top loop within the front panel, top loop within the bottom panel, insert with 1 single crochet, and then we're going to do another single crochet into the same top loops. Should be a little bit easier since they should already be gathered. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way across, making sure that we're connecting the top and bottom front panels together. And just as a really quick tip, the point for our bottom front panel should reach the last side row that we have right before our side seam, just because we want everything to be nice and even. And then once we reach that point, then just work into the back, again alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Make your way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I'll meet you back once when this single crochet row is finished. But one last quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this piece can stretch. So once when the single crochet row is finished, try on your piece. If it's a little too tight, redo some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, redo some stitches with a tighter grip. Either way, I will meet you back. Alright, so I am back. My single crochet row is all finished up. Everything fits perfectly, so now we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the rest of our piece to be. Now you are free to make this as long or as short as you like. I would like for my piece to be full length, so I'm actually going to start by making a chain 50, and that's 10 inches or 25 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do our slip stitches all the way up. So we're all going to bring our hook down into that chain that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, yarn over, and pull through everything on our hook, remembering not to tug too tightly. Let's do this again. Into that following chain, insert, yarn over, gently pull through everything, and once more into that next chain, insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything. Continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, remembering not to tug too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. So we are back, and we have made our way all the way down with our slip stitch row. Now we need to connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is find that next available stitch into the base and insert your hook in through there with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect it. And in order to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base as well and flip our work. Now the following rows are going to be back loop slip stitch rows. None of those slip stitches into the base actually count as a stitch, so we're all going to start by finding that last stitch from our previous row and insert only into that back loop, yarn over, and gently pull through everything again. Into that next stitch's back loop, insert, and gently pull through everything. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way back up. And I'll meet you back at the base just once more. I am back, and I have made my way all the way back down, and we should all have 1, 2, 3 rows nearly finished. We're just going to connect the 3rd row. So it's going to be done exactly the same way as the first row. So just find that next available stitch and insert your hook with a slip stitch. That still does not count as a stitch. And then in order to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. That stitch also does not count as a stitch. Flip our work and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. From here, we're going to be repeating our 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around. And when we don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. Alright, so we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it together. And this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another back loop slip stitch row. So let's all make sure that our work is slipped right side out, and we're going to insert our hook into the quarter stitch of both the front and the back panel. And all we're going to do from here is yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and now let's do our seam. So find that first stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Find that next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. Let's do that again. into the next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, and pull through everything on our hook. That's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. Alright, so we are back. We have just finished up seaming our bottom, and now to finish up the entire piece, we're going to single crochet across the top of our front panel, into the straps, across our back, and then all the way back down just to clean it up. So this is going to be fairly simple. I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of the top front panel, and then just alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, which we should already know how to do those. Make your way all the way up to the strap. Once we reach the strap, 1 single crochet into every chain, and then working across our back, again alternate between 1 to 2 single crochet into every side row. Make your way all the way up and around, and then once we make our way back down to the point of our bottom front panel, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so our single crochet cleaning everything up is all finished, and we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!